Every single day in this country and in the world, actually, people, parents have to bury their children. That has to be unimaginably painful, and especially even more so if your child was killed because of senseless violence, just pure, unadulterated evil. And my heart grieves. I've not been able to watch news stories and detach myself from them because I am a mother, I am an auntie, I am an educator, I work with young people. And when I hear these news stories, my heart grieves. And I ask that you who are listening and you're part of the Bad Thought Therapy family, I ask that you join me in praying for these families who are senselessly losing their children. And in this episode, I'm going to try to talk about why it happens and some things we can do to minimize and reduce it from happening in the future. And the question that I ask is how many more young people will die? What happened to Brianna Johnson, known as DreamDoll Brii, what happened to this 21-year-old woman has happened before thousands of times. And it's crazy to think, why isn't it stopping? Because we've already seen this over and over and over again, where a person is just shot down because of disagreements, um, things that are just senseless. It just doesn't make any sense. And I can't even try to rationalize it because it's so irrational and it's so idiotic that you can't even rationalize it, that a life is gone forever because of something stupid. So I'm going to try to share some lessons that I think we can learn. Again, I want to emphasize the power of prayer. I know people think that prayer is passive, and sometimes it is not as powerful as it is. But I assure you that even though we cannot turn back the hands of time and we cannot undo what has happened, we can pray for peace and we can pray for the family to have some comfort. Time does not heal wounds. Time simply lessens the sting. Time allows us to look back and make sense of things. Time can allow us to become wiser, to become more sensitive, and to become more compassionate and take action. I do believe that all pain has a purpose. God uses these tragedies in a way to motivate us. He uses these situations as catalysts to get us to rethink things that we're doing, to undo things that we have done, and to move for greater advocacy to make positive and constructive changes in our community. So here's another tragedy, and I'm going to put an article in the description box. I'm going to talk about some spiritual lessons we can learn. It has to stop. I mean, if I did some research, I'm sure I could go back and chronicle thousands of cases where someone was shot and it's supposedly on the surface, it looks like some kind of disagreement. But really, what has happened is evil. You know, I could write books, probably volumes on spiritual warfare. People do not understand that spiritual warfare is real. There is a real spiritual entity that works to kill, to steal, and destroy. And there is an opposite force, one of light and one of love. And if you don't understand spiritual warfare, you can become a victim to darkness and evil, or your loved ones can. You got to understand. I often tell my students, like, if you're in a fight and somebody else has a greater weapon than you you have a greater chance of losing that fight. Or if you don't know what weapons they're using, you don't have a chance to defend yourself. And that's the disadvantage of not understanding spiritual warfare. You have to understand we're not just fleshly, carnal beings. We are also spirit. There's this famous quote, I know you probably heard it, that we are actually spiritual beings having a human experience. You might have heard that before, that we really are spiritual. And if you're not tapping into that and you're not nurturing that spirit and you're not being mindful of spiritual things, it's very easy to suffer. And Lord help me, I am just trying to share some things that I think might be able to help us as a parent, as a teacher, as a human being who has lived and seen so many different things. I just want to share a little bit. Peace and abundant blessings. Thank you for listening and learning with bad thought therapy. I appreciate you. This episode is for everybody, but it is especially for parents. And I'm going to start off with something to think about. If I made a cake and I told you that that cake was good, was delicious, how would you really know that it was delicious? You would have to try it. And I'm going to ask you to try some of these strategies that I share with you today. I don't know everything, but there are some things that I do know from experience, and they have been proven to be true over and over again. Timeless wisdom can save us, and we just have to make sure that we are willing to follow wisdom, that we're willing to submit to the one who made it all, the great creator, the most high God. And I know that anything can happen, even with a relationship with God. God does not change life, he changes us. So all of us go through a variation of different things. Some of those experiences are very painful. And I don't understand why all things happen the way they do, but I do know that God is real. And I do know that he is a teacher, that he is a protector, he's a provider, he's a comforter. And it's almost impossible, it is impossible, not almost, oh my goodness, it is impossible to live an elevated life without him. It's impossible. And so I'm going to share some things, some lessons we can learn from this tragedy. The young lady, Brianna Johnson, DreamDoll Brii, 21-year-old, shot down, slaughtered, and killed from senseless violence. How can we stop this from happening? And as I mentioned earlier, this has happened thousands of times before. And my heart grieves. My condolences go out to anyone who loved this young lady. And let's get into some life lessons. And I ask that you try these things. If you are a parent, if you're a mentor, if you work with your auntie like I am, you work with young people, here's some things that we can teach our young people. And I believe, and I not believe, I know these things will reduce some of the senseless violence that we see today. Number one, and this is so critical, we must teach young people the clear, black and white lines of what is right and what is wrong, what is good and what is bad. Now, back in the day, because I'm over 60, our sense of right and wrong and our sense of morality was rooted in religion. And now, fast forward in 2026, I work with a lot of young people and they don't believe in God. They don't have a God. They don't believe it. They don't have a religion. They don't have a God. They don't believe in anything but Instagram. That's their God, Instagram, the internet. So when you're talking to them and you're dealing with this new generation of child, it's going to be hard to inject religion in it because they will reject it. So what I use as a teacher, because we really can't talk about religion in our classrooms, I use a very simple metric. Does it hurt or does it help? We must teach children that if they're doing something that will hurt themselves or other people, it is wrong. If they're doing things that will help themselves and other people, it is right. That is so black and white and so clear. Does it hurt people when you steal? Does it hurt when you lie? Does it hurt when you cheat? When you scam? Of course, we know the answer to does it hurt if you were to take a life? We must start off very young, from the time children come out of the womb, teaching them to not hurt themselves and others. That is how we can reduce this senseless violence. You put it in them, and you have to do more. Teaching is a very complex thing because it's not just telling children things. Teaching is modeling it. You must be a role model for the children you have, the children you serve. You must model it, and you must also show. You must show them examples with age appropriate lessons about what is right and what is wrong and what are the consequences. When you teach this lesson about helping and hurting, it is not complete unless you fully help them understand the consequences of hurting others. What it really means, because there's layers to it. It's not just your emotional pain. There are other things that go with hurting others. There is loss of everything, of money, of houses, of material things. It is loss of safety. Like when you hurt people and you hurt yourself, it's not just emotional. It is also physical. It is also physiological. It's medical. You're doing things to your body that hurt yourself and others. What that really means, the suffering that follows that. You must show them. You must show them examples of that. And you must do it over and over and over again. Teaching is not a one-time thing. When you want to put certain values in children, you have to go over that lesson a million times. You teach and you reteach. But that is how we will reduce a lot of the evil that is destroying our young people's lives, that they never get to fully reach their potential and live the life that God wanted them to live, because the lines between what is good and bad, what is right and wrong, are blurred. And because religion, so many young people and their families have rejected religion because religion has failed them. See, and that's what just breaks my heart, because relationship is not taught. It's not something that is promoted, because relationship means you don't really need religion. Although good religion can help you build a relationship, can strengthen your relationship with the Most High God. But I don't see anyone emphasizing relationship. And that's unfortunate, because it's going to cause so many people to be lost because they're not able to separate the two. Relationship with God is personal. It is personalized. It is intimate. We're all unique. 8 billion people on the planet, and no one has the same set of fingerprints. No one even has the same body scent. Do you know if a hound dog smelled your clothes, it would pass millions of people just to find you? That's how unique we are. Relationship is unique. And you got religion now that discourages people from having relationship. And you got all these religious people online debating about what is right and wrong. And this person is doing this and right, and this person is doing it wrong. And guess what? The base that they're using is off because they're misusing it. They're using religious text, but they're using it in the wrong way. Their misunderstanding and ignorance is causing so many people to be lost and gone astray. And again, it's heartbreaking. And that is why I emphasize that you must teach this in a way that our young people can understand. Does it hurt people? Does it help people? If it hurts in any way, it is not of God, period. If it's hurting you, if it's going to cause pain to somebody else, again, remember that. That's one lesson. Number 2, this is something that's really tough, but you have to do it early and often. You must teach our young people how to guard their hearts, their bodies, their minds. We are truly like vessels. And when I'm demonstrating this to students, I use a bottle of water, because usually I'm drinking a bottle of water all day, talking, my throat is dry, and trying to make sure I stay hydrated and keep my body healthy. And I use this bottle, and what I do is I'll pour water over into one of my plants. Now I ask the students, what's coming out of this bottle? And everybody said, water. Is tea coming out? No. Is orange juice coming out? No. Is lemonade coming out? And you get where I'm going. And what I teach them is that we're like vessels. Whatever we put in us is the only thing that can come out. So if you're wondering why so many young people are engaging in evil practices and doing destructive things, it is because all day, every day, they're not putting anything positive in themselves. When I say guard the mind, the heart, and the body, be mindful of what they're watching, what they're listening to, who they're around. We just saw what happened in Mississippi. Young black man, the only one in the group, ended up dead. And this happens a lot too. And I'm going to do another episode on that because that happens actually more than what people understand. I'll get into that later. But my point is that all of that matters. Like, guard yourself. You have to be aware. And these are principles that you must teach your child at the womb. You must teach and reteach, teach and reteach. Can you control everything? Can they control everything? The answer is no. But what we can control, we need to know how to control it well. We need to take measures to guard their minds. And that's what's happening. See, what we see in the news with young people is the result of them listening to things that are destructive. If you listen to messages of violence all day, every day, you're going to be a violent person. If all you're seeing online or what's glorified online is lust bait and prostitution, you're going to mimic it. Because we are natural as human beings, we are emulators. That's how we learn. That's why whenever I teach something, it's so important for us to be role models, for us to lead by example. When we set a good model for people, then they will have something to follow. But we must teach them to guard their minds and their hearts and their bodies. Countless people are just enduring unnecessary pain and suffering because they put the wrong things in them. I've done a demonstration too where I'll take a glass, and in that glass there may be some iced tea, and I'll keep pouring water in that glass, and eventually what will happen? The iced tea will be replaced with nothing but water. We've got work to do because we have to teach young people the psychology and brain science of how they are really literally being influenced by what they're putting in themselves. I could talk about how rap music or all kinds of evil media has influenced our children. I have done episodes on that, and it has. However, if the media existed and no one engaged in it and no one watched it, guess what would happen? They'd have to change it. Because the network, as we call them in my house, who control the media, they want to influence. That is really their ultimate goal. And yes, they're making money while they're doing it, but they're trying to create, and y'all know I sound probably crazy to some people, but it's true. They're trying to create a certain power dynamic. You're always going to be in a subservient position when you become the victim's perversion. When you participate, I can't even say victim because people are just voluntarily participating in this stuff, but perversion and violence, and that's what our kids are listening to. They're getting a daily dose. They're feeding themselves with all of these things that deal with being criminals. They glorify it, so they become criminals. Not surprising. They glorify being a prostitute in plain sight on social media. And so what do? They emulate that. They put their body on display, and it's a form of prostitution, and we have to call it what it is. And what it leads to is all kinds of evils. You put out lust bait, people are going to start they're going to bite that hook. And sometimes who bites that hook is not what you want. The violence that comes with that, when you objectify our girls, and that's what's happening, they objectify themselves, because again, the brain is not developed until you're 25, 26, 27 years old. So the part of the brain that deals with decision making is the last to be developed. And I've said this over and over and over again. Young people really do not have the cognitive ability to fully understand how their actions lead to certain devastating things. They may have a sense, but they don't fully understand the depth of it. That is the job of parents to teach that. That is the job of members of the community who are older and wiser to teach those things. Again, teaching is not just telling, it is modeling, it is showing. You got to show them. Now I teach at a different kind of school. I teach at a very good school, and I thank God. I mean, I just don't really have to deal with behavior like I used to. But when I first moved to Atlanta almost 30 years ago, my first job was just straight up in the hood, okay? And I went through some cultural shocks and transitions because it was a different, the inner city has a different kind of culture and a lot of violence, a lot of violence. And I grew up in the projects myself and I saw violence. But this was something different because it was so senseless and it was, people fighting over territory that they don't even own. Somebody said something bad to somebody and you want to kill the person over words. You literally want to take a life because you were insulted. Like that level of depravity, mental and emotional depravity, I just couldn't even relate to. But after a while, with all the gangster rap and you hear about all these senseless deaths due to gang violence, I decided that I was going to show them better than I could tell them. And I had a picture of a casket above my board in my room. And I remember the first year that I did this, the kids would, be sitting down and look up. And I said, oh yeah, you see it. And I reminded them how thousands of young, black, gifted men and women, that's where they are. They're in a casket, in a grave, in a cemetery somewhere, over nothing. Now, it was shocking at first, and but it shocked them because that is reality. And I didn't show them a body, just a casket. Now, this is a casket. Let them know this is where so many of our young people are ending up. And then I took it a step further and I talked about how many of these morticians have noted that when these young men are sent to their funeral homes and the morgues, mortuaries, their organs are missing. And I just explained this, that this is not something glamorous. It is very, very dark and ugly and painful. And when I was able to show them, I saw some light bulbs go off. And I saw literally young men move away from some of the things that they once thought were so appealing, because that's the trick of the enemy. The enemy uses deception. It's one of his number one tools to draw people in. It looks good on the surface. It looks fun. I remember years ago, I had a young man, and the way that I got to know him was I was trying to move something either out of my classroom or in my classroom. I don't even remember. But I had asked, would someone help me move some boxes? No one raised their hand except there was this one young man. He helped me. And what was notable about him was he wouldn't come to school on a regular basis, but when he did, he would always participate in this trivia thing that I had. I had a weekly trivia, and we had a person of the week, and then at the end of the week we had a trivia like contest between the boys and the girls. And it was always fun, and he was highly literate. And so I was fascinated by it. Sometimes he would print out the Wikipedia pages. It was just, but he would participate. And because of him, the boys would win oftentimes. So I got to know him and I found out that he had joined a gang. I never forgot when he was telling me about how he tried to get out of it. And number one, I asked him, why did you join? And he said something like, well, at first I thought it was fun. I thought, we were going to be together, a group of guys. Again, the enemy will make it appealing on the surface. So he just thought it was something to do because people in his neighborhood were doing it. And I won't mention the gang's name, but that gang has evolved. But anyway, he joined the gang. And then he said when they started engaging in a lot of crime and evil things, he didn't want to do it anymore. So he tried to get out. And that's what I also learned. You can't get out. You might be able to be an actor, but you just can't say, I'll walk away, I'm done, I'm through. It's not like that. So they tried to kill him several times. They have this thing where they jump you out or whatever. He fought back, and he's the kind of guy that would walk into a room. He'd be very quiet and unassuming, but you would know he was lethal. He had that what do you call it, aura about him, and he was very peaceful. But if you bothered him, he was that quiet, lethal kind of guy. Well, they, sent some people. He beat them up. I think they tried to kill him, and then one day he called me, and I'll never forget. I didn't even recognize his voice. He was crying. To hear this young man cry, and I didn't say anything, he just cried literally for about 5 minutes. And he shared that they had killed his the mother of his child, and that's why he ended up dropping out of high school, because once he had a baby, he did not want his child to not have a parent, as he did not have a parent, because I think he was being raised by his grandmother. I learned a lot from him, and some good things happened. I tried my best to help him and get some people to help him. But then I found out something bad just recently, that he had been arrested for something. So he came to my mind, and I was trying to find him, and I just Googled him, and I found him, and I saw his mugshot. And I had to have my daughter look, is that who I think it is? And she said, Mom, that's him. And I was so devastated. But the point I'm trying to make by telling that story, he joined the gang because it was first appealing to him. Mind you, he was 16 years old, brain fully not developed, not able to fully conceptualize, if I do A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, and so forth, it's going to happen, and what that really means. When children make bad decisions, it's always going to lead to pain. It's going to lead to pain. It's going to lead to suffering. It's going to lead to death every single time. And we all make mistakes. And by the grace of God, some of us have been able to have not succumb to those mistakes, but many people do. And so you must teach them to guard their hearts and minds. What are they watching? What are they listening to? It affects us. Who are they around can be a matter of life and death. And we see this happening every day. People are like elevators. They will either take you up or they will take you down. And you must teach this over and over and over again to your children. Again, you must model for them. You must say the right words. You must expose them to the right things. And you must show them the consequences, because most people, if they don't have some kind of real psychological issue, they don't want to have pain if they don't have to. You got to teach that. Another important lesson is community. We have to be our brothers and our sisters' keeper. I believe that we could reduce significantly the evil that is happening in our community if we would learn how to support one another. I know it sounds like utopia when I say, if young people help old people, if old people help young people, if we started to support one another, we would have so much more. And I know, I'm over 60 years old. I've watched this happen where people come to this country and they have nothing. And after 2 or 3 years, they have everything. They've got cars, they got homes, they got bank accounts. And you know how they do that? From one simple action. They work together. They share their resources. I read a book probably when my daughter was like 11 or 12. It's a fantastic book that literally changed my life and the way that I started to think and raise my daughter. It's called The Wake of the Wind by J. California Cooper. Now, it is a book of fiction, but it is a masterpiece. I got to start promoting that book. It's a masterpiece because it's about a black family after Reconstruction, during Reconstruction, after Reconstruction. And one thing is, so many things she covers in this book. J. California Cooper is really an unsung hero in the literary world. And I remember the day she died. I'm sidebar now. She died in 2014, and I was at a conference, and someone had announced her death, but many of the ELA teachers did not know who she was. And I remember just feeling some kind of way. I want to leave. I was grieving, and because she's my favorite writer of all time. But in this book, what she manages to do, number one, she manages to allow the reader to get in the psyche of a black male who has endured slavery. Now that, and the way she does it is just, I don't even know how she did it. It's just ingenious. But then she talks a lot about family and coming together. and sharing resources, and that's how families survive. Great work of fiction, historical fiction, because it is based on real historical events. But what I learned from that book is you must raise your children to appreciate and not take for granted family, and to work together, and that the goal in life is not necessarily to be isolated and independent and separated, but to have this interdependency where we are helping one another. And when we do that, we can reduce so many ills in our society. The violence too, somebody starts to fight, now we can get into hanging out in certain places. We got to redefine what is fun, because going out and drinking the white man's poison and smoking the drugs and all that, that shouldn't be fun, but that is fun for a lot of people. That's a whole nother podcast. We got to redefine what is fun and how to hang out. But you out, and some people are beefing and they're arguing, and arguments always tend to escalate into something worse. And you got to say, hey, y'all, let's squash this. Let's live to see another day. Let's live to laugh again. If we had that sort of support and communal respect, we would probably reduce 90% of the violence in our community, because black people just killing black people like it was nothing. And that's what makes walking this in this skin color so hard, because we already have to deal with the hatred from the outside. Nolan Xavier Wells. We always have to deal with that hatred from the outside. Now we're dealing with it on the inside, and you can't fight a battle that's on the outside while you got a battle going on in the inside. Civil war, you trying to deal with a civil war, then you're trying to deal with a war from arrows coming at you from the outside. It makes it so hard. And the thing about it is, as people, now I've shared this story. I had a business. My business was in a public setting, and I met a lot of different people. And so many of our people in our community are doing well. They're doing good things. They are living that elevated life that we're supposed to live. But it's like we have a leg missing or a foot missing. And if you have a foot missing or a hand missing, you're not whole. And that's what we have. We have this body of people, but then we have a part of a group on our body, a part of our body that's not just doing right and is dead and is atrophy. And so therefore we can't be all we can be, and it's painful. And it doesn't have to be that way. We can do better. We're called to do better. And with the Most High God and through relationship, we can do better. But if you teach community and love for one another, because you're different, it doesn't mean you're bad. Because you don't think the way I think, you don't like what I like, it doesn't mean you're wrong. If we could learn how to disagree agreeably, and you're okay and I'm okay, I'm not bothering you, you're not bothering me, we could have a better life. But you got people fighting over land that they don't even own, arguing about colors that only God made. And again, it's irrational to the point where I start thinking there has been some intellectual developmental issues here, because some things are so illogical and they're just insane. But then again, it's all about that evil. You'll kill a person because they said something. They looked at you the wrong way. And you didn't die. I always tell my students, look, you didn't lose any arms, you didn't lose any legs, you didn't go blind because somebody said something to you that you didn't like and it was painful. And that's what people are getting killed for. Somebody said something, and we don't know all the details, but clearly there was a video in Miss Johnson's situation where there was some kind of disagreement. Lord, it was just a disagreement. Nobody lost any legs. They didn't go blind. They didn't go deaf. And she should have been able to drive home and get to her home. And the other people should have been able to get to their home. But no, somebody shot up her car. And now she's dead over some words. That nobody died from the words, but you died from the bullets. Again, we gotta teach our people that we are brothers and sisters, that we're in a family of the kingdom of God. And when you kill your brother, your sister, you are really offending the one who made him or her. And that's what we got to start teaching. Another critical thing is purpose. If you, it's like getting in your car and, I'm from Florida. So if I want to drive to Florida, if I want to drive anywhere, shoot, if I get in my car, I need to have a clear direction of where I'm going. And that's what purpose is all about. Where are you going? If you haven't listened to my episode already, but I did an episode about dying for money. And that story is about a young lady out of England who went to Dubai. She met this guy, and now she is facing a possible death sentence, execution by firing squad, because according to her mother, she got over there and something happened, and she tried to defend herself, and she ended up killing this man. And because of the way that Dubai's laws are set up, she could possibly face the death sentence and be executed. And so I talked about how women have a better chance rather than using lust bait to try to get money or using your body to get money. You have a far better chance of making your money and living longer if you would just get a career. If you would go to school and you would get some specialized education and training, and you would have a career, become a dentist, become a doctor, become a lawyer, a teacher, an accountant, a politician, a civil engineer. It is just better. And that's purpose. We got to start teaching our children that they're not here to do things that will hurt people and hurt themselves. And when you put yourself out there like that, you hurt yourself. Or your purpose is to make music that elevates it's not thug life, it's thug death. Elevates lust, violence, criminal behavior. That's not your purpose. That's not why God made you. You can't build the kingdom of God and have that elevated living doing that. So we've got to teach our children that each person has a purpose. Now, what's interesting is they have to determine that purpose. I tell my students, like, I can't tell you what you should be or not be. I do see certain gifts, and I do, sometimes will suggest, have you thought about going into this career or that career? I think you'd be great at that because of this, that, and the other. But I told you all that I taught boys when I first came to Atlanta who had the aptitude, the intellectual aptitude to be neurosurgeons, to find the cure of cancer. And they wouldn't do it. You know why? Because they had filled themselves with this music, with this media that promoted everything but righteous living and helping people. The media that these students listened to and watched all day, every day, was about hedonism and not about helping people, and not about leaving a legacy, not about saving people, none of that. So I would let some of these boys perform surgery on my brain. That's how smart they were. But so many of them never got a chance to use those natural born gifts of intellect and creativity, because again, going back to the other lesson, not guarding their hearts and their minds and their bodies, filling themselves with trash, whether it's food, whether it's fiction, it's just bad. And so that's what we got. We got to teach our children purpose. You got to teach them how to have a sense of purpose. And it's not to make people lust after you. It's not to promote things that lead to death and lead to suffering. And that's what so many of them do. Another thing is, and this was something that I really struggled with trying to help my students with, was money. The truth about money, because when I taught in the inner city, many of my students, they struggled financially. There were a lot of economic challenges. And I remember one student looked at me one time. He said, "You don't know what you would do if you looked in the refrigerator and there was no food. You don't know if you would sell drugs or not." I had to step back and think about that for a second. And he kind of reminded me of how people are in desperate situations. And I could talk about how they got there in the first place, but nevertheless, we have to start teaching our children how to come together and be creative and get money in ways that are righteous, that don't lead to death, don't lead to dying and suffering. We got to teach that because there are ways. Now, for my own life, I've had to step back and think about that myself. There were often times when I struggled financially, and I had to, sometimes if you're just in survival mode, you're not thinking, okay, I need to pause, I need to sit down, and I need to be creative about how I can get money in ways that are legal, in ways that are righteous. And God blessed me to be able to understand how I could do that. And that's one of the reasons why I started a business and I have a business and I continue to promote entrepreneurship, even though it's extremely difficult, because it was a way to learn how to manage my money and participate in the financial cycle of this country and this world in a way that's legal and righteous, and I can help people, but I could still earn a little money on the side. And that's what we got to do, because if you're starving, you might go out there and do something desperate. But see, here's the thing again, and I even taught my students, like, if you don't have any food, but if all y'all got together and y'all put some change together, you could make a big pot of something and eat off of it for days. Again, it goes back to the lesson of community. We have to teach those things to our students, and how there is so much power when you come together and you put your resources together. And again, I've seen it up close and personal with other people, other groups of people coming over here. And I've taught these students, they have nothing when they come over here sometimes. And yet they come together first, and they support one another, and they support one another's businesses, and they support one another with just the basic needs. And that's why they are able to have so much more. And we can do the same things. We can learn. That's a great example to learn from. They also need to learn that money isn't everything. All money is not good money. I might do another episode on this rant that Trick Daddy did in response to India Irie's criticism of the song that this singer Young Miami has performed, and that's out now. And his attack on her was so vicious. It was so unnecessary. He could have attacked the ideas, but he attacked her as a person. And one of the things that he kept saying in his video, and a lot of people have this weird mentality that it's all about the money. You got to get money how you can get it. And it doesn't matter who you hurt. It doesn't matter what you do. You just got to get the money. And a lot of people teach that to people, and young people some kind of way, because again, their minds are undeveloped and they're very impressionable. And that's what they focus on, just getting money. They know nothing about managing that money. They know nothing about, because getting the money is one thing, keeping the money is something else. See, I teach my students the goal in life is never to get, it's to keep. So, and that about money comes and goes. And a lot of these people that they see online, and it looks like they have money and they really don't have it. And so you've got another weird thing where you got young people being exposed to people, holding up stacks of money. And they use that as a metric for, okay, I've made it. I look at all this money I got. But I got it through I polluted the community. I got it through selling my body, my soul, and that's what we got to teach our children, the truth about money. There are things that they need to learn about what to do with money, and how you can use money in the right way, and how that will not only help you, but it will help our community. And that's a big issue. Let me tell you, especially when you're working with children who have socioeconomic disadvantages. But again, we teach them things like community, how to come together, how to work together, purpose, how to make that sacrifice on the front end, and you're able to live differently on the other end. I know my mother, she had 4 children. She had dropped out of college when she had me, but my mother went back to school after having 4 children. And I watched my mother graduate from college, and I watched how getting her degree and working, how it changed her life. And that's what we need to teach our children. That's the better way. You go out here and you know, engage in criminal activity, and you may get the money, but is it really worth it that you're going to die? That you're going to be locked up in a cage? That you're going to have to be tortured by nightmares because you've used your body in an unnatural and unrighteous way? Is it really worth it? And the answer is no. One of my favorite quotes is, money is an excellent servant, but a terrible master. If the goal is I just got money and it's all you got, you have no character, you have no values, you have nothing, you're really broke. You are so poor, you're dirt poor. And those are the kind of lessons that we have to teach our children about money and how to get it righteously, and what is money and how to keep it and how to navigate through our financial system. And that's so important. And you got to know it yourself. That's why every day you should be trying to learn. Every day learn. If you don't know something, you can learn it now. And this is the thing about the internet. Internet is now becoming the king of the world, because guess what? On the internet, there's so much free information, and it'll help you learn how to make better decisions. Last but not least, a lesson that we need to teach is about life and death. We got to teach children about the truth about life and death. I have often shared that one of my sisters passed away. And being in that room when she took her last breath and holding her hand, it was so final. It was so hard. And for months after her death, I did not go to sleep. I spent a lot of time on the internet just trying to understand death. I thought that, I was okay. My faith, taught me about, I learned some things through my faith about heaven and hell and all those different things. And I had to, but after her death though, it just sort of reignited me to look some things up and try to understand it as best as I could, because death is still probably the biggest mystery. We don't really fully know. But through my research, after months and months of research, I learned things about pre-death phenomenon, things that happen before people die. There are many, many recorded cases where people were pronounced dead, and then they came back. They were resuscitated in what they saw. And everybody did not see something pleasant, although many people did. It's not the same story for everybody. And so it made me start to think about how we just can never play with death. I wouldn't take those chances. I would tell my young people, you can't take those chances. We got to teach them how to respect life and to respect death. Death is final. When a person goes, they cannot come back. And if there is such a place as hell, we don't want to spend our lives just doing evil, just doing things to hurt people and then die. Because what if hell is real? And there's an old saying, because I'm a former French teacher. It's a French philosopher and mathematician, lived, I think, like in the 1600s, late 1500s or something, early 16th century, René Descartes. And I'm going to interpret it in English as best as I can, but he was an atheist at one point in his life. And he made this statement that's in some of his writings. He said, if I live and I don't believe in God, and I die, and I find out that God is not real, that he does not exist, I have lost nothing. But he said, if I live and I don't believe in God, and I find out that God is real and heaven is real, I have lost everything. That's something to think about. It's something that we can't play with. And I do think that some people, when people die, they sort of glorify death. Like the person, everybody's going to heaven and they're gone and they become this angel and they become this, this symbol. And I don't think it's that simple. And I think it's much more serious than that. We have a soul. And I truly believe that the soul goes somewhere. And this is based on, again, months and months of research and reading different stories. Lord, I could not go to sleep. My health was compromised because I really was only getting like 2 or 3 hours of sleep, just trying to understand what happened and where was my sister and where do people go. And again, I thought that I was at a place spiritually where I was just sure, heaven or hell, it's so black and white. I'm telling you, we got to teach our children it's deep, and don't play with it. Don't play with your soul, because if hell is real, the way to get there is to just do evil unashamedly and do it all day, every day, and think nothing of it and reject God if it's real. And I wouldn't play with it. I'm just going to err on the side of I'm going to believe that it's real, and I'm going to try to live my life. I know I'm not perfect, but I'm going to try my best to live righteously, because we don't know the moment, we don't know the hour, we don't know the day when it's our last day, and it's final. We don't get another chance. You can't come back and say, okay, give me another chance. There's a biblical story about this, and Jesus is talking, and he's telling this story about this man who suffered when he was on the earth. He was poor, he was destitute, he was homeless, he was on the streets. And he dies and he goes into heaven and he's in the bosom of Abraham. But then the people that had everything while they were on the earth and they seemed like they were just living it up, they go to hell. And they're begging and begging and begging, can they come back and get another chance? And they can't. And I tell you, it's nothing to play with. And we got to teach our children to do this, to believe this, to not take life and death for granted. Black people were enslaved for 246 years on paper. We really still are enslaved in some ways. But for 246 years, from sun up to sundown, we had to work hard, manual labor, terrorism, rape, mothers and fathers being separated from their children, children being separated from their beloved. We endured that, just all manner of evil and dehumanizing treatment. And now we are free. Now we are free. And what have we done with our freedom? We have gone from slaves to sluts. We have taken our freedom and we use the poison that the other people created for us, the alcohol, the drugs, all of these other toxic things, to destroy ourselves. We have been given freedom to be peaceful instead of violence. What have we done? We have been given the freedom to create what we want to create. Have we created things that uplift, or have we created things that have torn down? We got to think about what we've done with our freedom, because what we do with our freedom is a matter of life and death. I have said it 1,000 times. I know I can't take my next breath without the Most High God. I cannot breathe unless He gives me permission. And we must never, ever forget that every day in your life, that must be in the forefront, that you are walking, you're talking, you're seeing, whatever you're doing, it's because of the grace of the Most High God. And our young people don't really understand that. They get up and it's all about hedonism. It's all about just living for the next thrill. And young people, I'm saying young people, old people too. Old, trust and believe. And the consequences of that are really bad, because it's not only hell on earth, that's what it eventually leads to. Then it could be hell in the afterlife. And I say, do not play with it. Teach your children. Teach your children. We don't want our last day on earth to be a day that we had gotten intoxicated, we cursing people out, we're taking people's lives or trying to take people's. That's not how we want to live. And so you must teach your children to respect life and to respect death. When we have lived a good life, in Eastern religion, they teach when you have lived a good life, your death will be good. I am a person who I've studied the teachings of Jesus Christ, and I believe what He said was true. And I know the books don't record everything He said, but what He said was enough to get me to know that let me know that there is a heaven or hell, and I'm not taking chances with it. And I know we're not perfect. I know we fall short. All of us do. We all sin. But we must strive. We must make the intentional effort to do better, to do our best. All right, I want to wrap things up because I'm trying not to go over an hour. And so let's kind of just recap some of the lessons. Number one, you got to teach your children a clear understanding of what is right and wrong and good and bad. I say the best way is to teach them what hurts and what helps. Remember, if it's hurting somebody, it's wrong. If it's helping somebody, it's good. And you must teach this to them from the time they're born, all day, every day. You must be teaching this through your own example, modeling it, showing them examples of the consequences when people don't do right and when they do wrong. You must also teach your children to guard their hearts and their minds and their bodies. We are truly vessels. The only thing that can come out of us is what we put in us. So if you put filth in you, that's the only thing that's going to come out. If you put good things in you, or you put not the right knowledge in you, it will come out. We got to teach our children that. We also, this is critical, teach our children a sense of community. We will not survive what's going to happen if we don't start to share our resources and work together and help one another. That is that I've seen it work for so many other communities of people. It can work for us. It's a good thing to adopt and practice. Another critical thing is purpose. When people get up in the morning and they sort of have, I call them wanderers, like you don't have a sense of purpose. You're just looking for your next thrill. You just want to live a life of hedonism. Everybody has a purpose. You're made just like the sun was made and the moon was made and the stars were made. You are made for a purpose to do something to make this world better. And you must strive to do that every single day. Teach that. Another critical thing is money. A lot of young people have misconceptions about money. I know when I was younger, I did not know anything about money, had so many misconceptions. And when I found out the truth, my life literally changed. You got to teach them what to do with money, how to use money in the right way, how to get money through righteousness, not through prostituting yourself, not through creating things that destroy and cause pain and suffering for yourself and people, but to get money in the righteous ways. And last, but of course not least, life and death. Let's not play with it because we have a soul. And I'm telling you, based on months and months of research, I would not play with it. There is something that happens after we die. No one is 100% completely sure, but if there is a hell, it's a place you don't want to go. And so therefore, every day when you get up, you set your heart to be pleasing to the Most High God. To be carnally minded is death. It leads to death and suffering. To be spiritually minded leads to life, and life more abundantly. Every single day when you wake up, you must thank God, first of all, for life. You must acknowledge that the world is rotating, the earth is rotating on its axis because of Him. The stars and the moon and the planets exist because God is real. And you must understand that God made you. So therefore, you must seek Him for answers. You must seek Him for wisdom, for direction, for everything. The beautiful thing about God is that you can talk to Him 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There is not a time you cannot call His name, and He will answer, and He will show you great things that you thought you would never understand. That's what you do when you wake up. Your prayer relationship it must always be over religion. Good religion can really help people if it's good religion. The problem is that we have so much bad religion that it's running people away, it's confusing people, it's destroying people. But relationship is when you talk to God directly for yourself. You listen to God. You spend time with God. Meditation and silence. Turn off everything. Turn off the phone and go to the throne. Your television, your cell phones, everything, your radio, whatever you're listening to, and get in alignment with the Most High God. And I'm telling you, we can't control everything that happens. And just because you have a relationship, it doesn't mean your life will go the way you want it. God is not like a slot machine or a soda machine. You put a little something in and then something comes out. That's not how it works. Your life belongs to Him. And I assure you, if you trust in Him and you allow yourself to understand that He loves you more than anybody else or anything else in this world, and that He will take care of you and He will guide you, all will be well today and forevermore. So I encourage you, if you have not accepted that relationship with God, you just surrender. You just say, God, I'm tired of this. I want to be in relationship with you because you're everything and you're all things. Trust when I say, as someone who's almost 61 years old, God is truly real and He loves you and He cares. And that is the most important thing you can seek out in this life. Before you go, I want to thank you for listening and learning with Bad Thought Therapy. It only takes a few seconds to like the video and subscribe to this channel. It was made especially for you. Peace and abundant blessings to each of you.